Dayna Martin is an author and peaceful parenting advocate, spreading the message of freedom and children's rights. Author of the books Radical Unschooling, A Revolution Has Begun, and Sexy Birth. She's been featured on the Dr. Phil Show, Nightline, 60 Minutes, The Jeff Probst Show, and most recently, ABC's hit show, Wife Swap. Her articles, videos, and TV appearances have helped thousands of families on their path to live with more freedom, peace, and joy. We hear words like rebellion and chalk it up to normalcy. But what if there was nothing to rebel against? What if we lived with the same respect for our children that we demand they have for us? What if we could recognize that punishments model injustice, and that through using power to control another person, we are teaching them to do the same? It is through loving, kindness, and understanding that children learn love and peace, and in turn will reflect this back on the world. Respecting children's rights and freedoms is a revolutionary approach to parenting and education. This is a parenting philosophy on the leading edge of new thought, yet it is rooted in instinctual wisdom. Our culture needs to realize that living with respect and freedom with our children is the most responsible way to create a peaceful world.
Good evening, everybody. This is Dayna Martin of Try This at Home. So glad you could join me tonight. The snow is melting even more here in New Hampshire. We had a couple of really warm days this week. It was great. We got out raking and started planting things, and I'm feeling so amazingly recharged. Cabin fever was a big deal for a lot of people. I think this year it was a long winter. So how was your week? I hope everybody had a great week. Us have had a technical glitch. We got through it. We have a conference coming up, a really exciting conference coming up in the UK. This is something I just planned the other day. I had the idea. My parents live in the United Kingdom. They live in England in a little town called Quadring in Lincolnshire. And I had the idea to go over and visit them. They, in fact, invited me and the kids over. So the 5 of us were going over in September. And I had the idea to hold a conference there while I'm there. Why not? I have so many people that follow my work from that area and from England, all over Europe really, but a lot of people from England. So I decided to schedule an event. So we have the first United Kingdom Peaceful Parenting and Natural Learning Conference that's going to be held on September 6th in Peterborough, England. Happens to be the town where my father works. He's worked there for many years, and he knows the area, and he went and looked at the place today and said it was awesome. So if you live in the UK, we would love to have you part of the event. We have some great speakers, and the website will be up soon. I have a great show for you tonight. I have on a friend of mine, a woman that I met through a mutual friend, and she was a real inspiration to me. Her name is Christy Funk. So this show is a little bit different than I usually talk about parenting and education, and this is about parenting. It's mostly about motherhood. It may raise a few eyebrows from some listeners because it's about sensual motherhood, sexuality, and being empowered, sexy women as mothers. I think people think they become a mom and they have to say goodbye to that part of themselves, but that's not true at all. We, as women, are just naturally sensual and sexual, so we're going to talk about radical self-love, and Christy's going to be calling in soon. She is founder of Radical Self-Love, and her bio says, Christy is the owner and creator of Super Sensual Living, a lifestyle brand that inspires women to dip into their juiciest versions of themselves. She believes that, first, women need to truly fall in love with themselves so they can show up to life phenomenally. At Super Sensual, women have the access to online programs, Super Sensual and Radical Self-Love materials, as well as one-on-one coaching with Christy. She's an expert in holistic wellness and eco-beauty. She's been living a hot and holistic lifestyle for over 20 years. I love that, hot and holistic. Most people don't put those two things together. That's what I love about Christy. She really pulls a lot of different things together that you're not expecting. I mean, you hear naturally minded, and I think people just have an idea of what women that are walking this path are like. But the truth is, we, us naturally minded women, are powerful, we're sexy, and you can be everything you want to be. despite how you choose to parent. So Christy is going to be joining me this evening. It says she is a transformational lifestyle leader, public speaker, retreat facilitator, and author. A prolific writer, Christy's been published in several media outlets, including articles for Green Child and Sacred Pregnancy, the book and magazine, and is currently working on her first book. She's a single mom, and she lives in California with her 2 boys who enjoy skate parks, sardines, and Legos. I love that. So welcome, Christy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Dayna. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. It's so nice to have you here.
I'm excited. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for calling in. I know the time difference is sometimes challenging for people, but what is it, 5 o'clock out in California?
Yeah, and it's super sunny and beautiful.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
I know. I'm not rubbing it in or anything at all.
We had one sunny, nice day this week, and that was like amazing. We never even went inside. We ate outside. We were totally outside the whole time. So, Christy, I just introduced you, and I shared a little bit more about what you do. And over the years, I've really found how much healing needs to take place for women on this path of a peaceful, more naturally minded parenting. I mean, any parenting, really. But to meet your children in partnership and to focus on their needs and value them just as much as your own, you really have to gain self-confidence and learn to love yourself. So that's one thing I'd love to focus on. But first, why don't I have you share a little bit about yourself and who you are and how you came to this amazing point in your life?
Okay, so I've been probably for about at least 20 years just really on the path of like holistic living, green living, before it was really like a huge catchphrase and like marketing tool. I just felt a need that I started connecting the dots between what you eat and who you are as, mind, body, spirit, doing yoga. I went vegetarian, really getting into the holistic healing arts. And when I became pregnant with my first son, who is now 10, I knew I wanted a home birth. So that started a whole new journey for me and really just put me into this space of like, wow, I want to share this with people. And, because it went from being all about me to how am I going to raise my children? I want them, not exposed to chemicals, eating organic, cloth diaper, blah, 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 on and on. And so I did that with my first, and my boys are 22 months apart. And when my second was born, I was really just kind of hanging out at the birth center, which was down the street from my house, and eventually opened up a shop called Belly Sprout. And that was in business for 7 years, and I created quite a community in Southern California. I was the first of its kind to have cloth diapers and to have all the products, but also the resources. To me, it's all about education. I just can't put something in a bag and say thank you very much. I had to give the whys and the hows and the wheres and what to do. So that was a big, big passion of mine. About 4 years ago, my body completely crashed. I came back from Spain. That's where my husband at the time, we're actually separated and going through a divorce now. But at the time, we came back from Spain, and I was just wiped out. And it took a good year before I was able to function properly with my children. I didn't know what was going on. I was winded. I had to keep laying down. I was having heart palpitations, and I was going in between like regular doctors and my holistic practitioners. And in a nutshell, I was depleted. I was adrenal fatigue, like my hormones, everything just went crazy, and it's because I was doing too much. I was in an unhealthy relationship. I wasn't feeling fulfilled or supported there. I was running the store and a community. I was giving, not only to the community, but of course to my kids, because I was nursing. They were each nursed for 4 years each. I was doing the whole thing. And I wasn't feeding myself with what I needed to be. And so it was a big wake-up call for me to start looking at myself, like how can I put the oxygen mask on me first before I take care of the entire community. And so I started adjusting my my lifestyle and making little changes and big changes, and just always being mindful of, like, is this loving to myself? Am I overextending myself? Learning to say no, because I was a big yes. Oh yeah, I'll do that event for you, or I'll come to this and I'll do that. And I had to restructure it. So about 2 years ago, we separated, and that led into this whole new world for me of discovering who I was as a woman, because I think once, especially in the natural parenting world, we become almost martyrs for this movement, which I think is great, but there needs to be a balance of picking and choosing your battles of what you want to take on full on. If you have the support, then wonderful, but I didn't, and I was trying to do it all. So I was starting to come into who I am as a woman. We forget about that part of us, that sensual, beautiful, feminine, divine, sexual part of us. And I was exploring it, and I was realizing, wow, I need self-love. That's the answer to everything. And so within the last couple of years, I was pretty much journaling my process on Facebook, and people saw me morph into where I am now. And so from this work in the last 2 years that I've done on myself, I've created the program Radical Self-Love, and I'm creating my business geared around that and sensuality. And just a bunch of fun, exciting things. Just doors kept opening, and I started writing poetry again and getting into like erotic poetry and just really celebrating who I am as a woman and sharing it with women. I'm very, very passionate about lighting that up in women that I meet, and it's really exciting. So that's kind of in a nutshell.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I know you caught my eye a while back when we became friends. I don't even know when it was, but it was through Gina Kirby, our mutual friend. And I come across a lot of people, hundreds, thousands of people in my work and Facebook pages and web pages, but I kept getting stuck on your page. It was just so fascinating to me. You were such a beautiful woman, and your pictures were like so boudoir sexy, but you were a mom like me, and we were on the same path. And it just was so inspirational, because I had just started getting into having enough self-confidence to do some modeling, and I would go to your page and it would inspire me. I'd say, we can do this as moms. You know, we can be sexy and also be naturally minded and respected and be advocates, because, you know, you wonder sometimes. I know that my, some friends were so supportive of me doing modeling and, you know, kind of borderline, a little bit risque types of photos. And, you know, I'm an advocate. I'm a parenting advocate. Like, did you have any concern about that in your photos that you're posting?
Well, okay, so this is a great entrance into what we'll be discussing, because I felt like I was being reborn, in a sense. I had this whole, like, rebirth of my feminine that was pretty much, like, pushed inside, because you become the Madonna, the mother. You're the nurturer. You're the giver of life, the giver of milk, of food, of all of that. And the dynamics, depending on how the dynamics are in the marriage, the man can honor that as well as completely holding space for her as a sensual being, and I didn't have that. So one of the first things that I did, and I had this in my mind way before I did the boudoir shoots, is probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I kept toying with the idea, because I'm passionate about photography and fashion photography and fine arts, and I thought, how great would it be to do photo shoots of moms as their sensual, like their alter ego, like these fierce, you know, erotic, sassy, foxy women. And so when about 6 months into my separation, I asked a photographer, I'm like, do you want to do a boudoir shoot? I don't know what we're doing, but can we shoot it at the store? So we closed the store down, and we did these pictures, and I'm like, you know what? I'm facing my fears head on, and I posted them, and it was just like exploded. And they're very subtle. I mean, they're not Playboy, Hustler, anything like that at all. They're just really, I wanted more of like the 60s film star, like sensual, erotic pictures that were more innuendos of sexuality instead of like obvious.
Right, they're more like suggestive. They're not so obvious, but I think they're so classy. And I love how you chose kind of a feel and a theme that was you. And I did the same with kind of the more rocker steampunk. I mean, that's kind of part of who I am. So it's so fun to play up that kind of that wild side of you that's there. That wild side that you were born into and that you lived as a teen, and that's always going to be with you, and to really play that side up and show it in a sexy, hot way. It's such a celebration of who you are.
It is, and we all have it. We just, for whatever reason, may not have, because you see some women, it's like, gosh, how do they like own it all the time? They, they're out there and they're just hot, and you just feel this pull to them of like, wow, they're very confident in their sexuality, and it's such a turn on, not sexually, but like empowered. You're seeing this woman that's empowered in her space. And when I put those pictures up, I'm like, I'm going to do it, and I don't know what people are going to say. And I would say, for the most part, like 99% were very supportive, and I started getting emails and messages from women going, gosh, I really am inspired. I'm going to look for a photographer, and I'm going to start, or my husband took these pictures of me, and I'm like, yeah, go. That's, pull it out, and like you said, celebrate it.
Completely.
So I went from being like granola crunchy mom selling cloth diapers with her babies in her sling to this full-blown woman, and people saw that transformation. And I did it because I wanted women to be inspired. It wasn't about, look at how hot I am. It's like, look, I can do this. You can too.
Oh, I know. And isn't that so important to point out? So many things fly through my head when I connect with you. But one is, I wouldn't even have felt that sexy or confident to do that if I hadn't had a natural birth and hadn't breastfed for, either been pregnant or breastfeeding for 13 years straight. It was through birth that I was born, because I was so insecure and had no self-confidence. And when I gave birth naturally and then had home births, I was so empowered. I mean, I couldn't have been the sexy person and that attitude that I had for those photos if I hadn't gone through natural birth. So I love that you say, these crunchy kind of granola moms that we were, hey, that's what led me here. That's what led me here.
Right. It is. And every woman's path is different. Every woman's path. In some women, if they've had a very healthy sexual history, then it's easier. But if there's like emotional or sexual abuse, it's harder, because you're dealing with those demons and those wounds. And because I have a past. When I was 5, I was molested, and then continued to have like these emotionally abusive relationships. And so I never really owned my sexuality. It was either taken away from me, or I felt obligated to give it, but it was never fully mine. So I'm 46 and coming into this type of information, like, whoa. And that is part of the next path that I'm going to be doing, is really uncovering that. And because it's so debilitating when you're not given permission to be the sexual, we are sexual creatures, period. And not to be given permission to own that can hold you back in so many. I mean, we could talk for hours just on that one topic, but I wanted to face this head on and just really get this conversation going with women, that it's okay if this is comfortable for you, because if there's resistance, there tends to be some wounds in there. There tends to be issues that are not resolved. So when you come in like you did, taking those pictures, isn't it liberating?
Oh, yeah, I never knew I could do it. And once I started, it felt so good, and I was so nervous posting them, but it was a self-confidence boost. So I love that you say you're not posting them to say, oh, look at how hot I am. You're posting them to just be confident and say, oh my gosh, like, can you believe what I did? Kind of like, I did it. And, it's such a liberating thing for sure. I noticed working with moms through coaching calls that, they call me and we start off with the focus of trying to help them on some parenting issue. And it seems so often this issue is stemmed to their self-esteem and stem to childhood wounds, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. It's all connected. I mean, I love that you're doing this to pull everyone together, because what is it? 1 out of every 3 women were sexually abused as a child. I don't know the statistics, but
it's ridiculous, and it infuriates me, but it is what it is, and I just can't believe how many women I come across. It's like, oh yeah, I had that too. I'm like, this is not normal, and it's not okay.
Right.
It's not okay. So what can we do to stay out of staying in that position of being a victim? And that's the key, because if you take that on and you take that energy of being a victim, it just sabotages your whole life. And that's that transition into owning your life, owning your sexuality, owning your choices, owning everything that you're going to do, just puts you into a whole different ballgame.
Completely.
If you stay victim, you stay stuck.
And a victim mentality is cultural. I think it becomes really habitual too to place yourself in that role, and it's not conductive to a partnership paradigm with your kids or with your partner. It's an authoritarian paradigm. The authoritarian paradigm is, victim and oppressor. And if you were raised that way, most of us were raised with the authoritarian paradigm, both with parenting and with education. It's so hard to step out of that role. So this is all connected. When people want to work toward partnership parenting, peaceful parenting, letting go of the identity and the story that you're a victim is huge. Yes. It's huge.
It's huge. And, you can't have a functioning, healthy, sensual, romantic, beautiful partnership if you come in with those wounds and either you're not willing to work with it or look at it, or you don't have a partner that's going to be providing space and, that sacred space for the healing and do it in partnership. But it's when those wounds are there, it's hard to have that type of relationship unless you're working towards breaking through that.
Right. So these photos were part of that for you. They were part of your healing journey, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Well, what else have you done? What else have you done to work toward that, to move away from the victim mentality? What else has empowered you?
It was, I've done a lot of meditation and a lot of energy work, just really releasing any toxic, stuck energy that's been in my space, because anything that isn't my energy is almost like an invader. And so working just to clear that out, and just a lot of healing time to reflect, I closed my store in November, but, I've held very few hours in the store. So just a lot of time to write, to kind of explore myself, like, what is it that I want? What is it that I want in life for me and for my children? What kind of career do I want? How do I want to create my days? And then also I was introduced to writing with a young man about a year ago, and that is my number one passion, is writing. And so I write these kind of erotic poems, and just like the pictures, Dayna, the first time I put my first quote-unquote erotic poem online, I was so scared. I thought, oh my gosh, what are these people going to think? And I'm like, you know what? You have to do what you fear the most, because at the end of the day, when you die, are you going to kick yourself in the pants for not pushing yourself to the next level? And so I did, and it just caused this ruckus, and they were calling me 50 Shades of Funk. And
oh my God.
But once again, it opened the door for not only women, but men were messaging me and saying, wow, I just really resonated with that. And it's like you just pulled the words out of my mouth. So I was touching on the feeling of sensuality, and I'm very much about the feeling. It's not, 50 Shades of, did you read that? Did you have a chance to read 50
I
Shades
haven't.
of Grey?
I've read similar. I mean, I love Anne Rice's early work, her Sleeping Beauty erotic series. And have you read those?
No, I never did. And a mom gave me 50 Shades of Grey when I had my store. I'm like, what are you guys all reading? And it was really awful writing. I didn't like the characters or the story. I thought it was a really unhealthy relationship. It was not what I thought eroticism and sensuality were. So I wanted to pull in, and that's the book that I'm writing, is Super Sensual. I want men and women to get into the feeling of sensuality. You know, it's a feeling. It's not about the end result. It's the whole, like before, it's the banter, it's the flirting, it's the innuendos, it's the body language, and sensuality, not just sexuality. It's like, how do you set a table? How do you create beauty wherever you go? How are you sharing your meals with your family? I mean, with my boys, we sit down and we have meals, and when I'm in a hurry and I just kind of haphazardly, like, okay, you're going to eat, they look at me and it's like, where's the silverware, Mom? This does not look really good. And so those it's very small things, and we can infuse it throughout our daily life, and it's like the leading into the sexual experience, leading into the sensual life of that joy.
Right. It's like emotional foreplay.
Totally.
So how I'm curious how, were you nervous at all for your boys seeing any pictures? Like, what were your feelings surrounding your boys seeing, like, the sexier photos of you, and what did they say about them? When they first came out, because we were all looking at them, and my mom was with me too, and my mom, coming from a very Catholic Latina background, I'm like, okay, I don't know how I'm gonna, I'm still the Catholic daughter, and so we were looking, and she goes, "They're nice." Nope, they're nice. You can't. They're tasteful. They're pretty. And that was a huge thing for my mom. With my boys, I'm very open with them about things like this. They didn't say anything. They're like, oh, that's Mommy. Okay. They're fun. They didn't have anything negative to say about him, or they weren't shocked. I mean, we've taken baths together. They've seen me naked. I have no issue. Right. Well, I mean, birth and breastfeeding, everything's a continuum of sexuality. In my book, Sexy Birth, I write about that birth is a continuum of sexuality. So in a sense, our children were raised with the sensuality that they understand it. To them, that's what you look like. And it's not, to me, I don't want to give them the idea that the body is dirty. And it's not just because you see a naked body, you don't immediately go into that sex mentality. It's like, I gave you birth. Right. No, so I'm really comfortable with them, and we haven't gotten to that talk yet, but eventually, because they've been with me. They're not, the littlest one just went into public school like maybe a month ago, but they've been and he's 8, so they've been with me this entire time. But once they get out into the real world, I'll have to have those kind of talks, and I'm thinking of how that's going to come into fruition. Do you mean the talk, like the sex talk? Like, what do you mean? Talk. Yeah. Yeah, the sex talk. Because, I mean, the reality of where we are in this world is children this age they're having sex. Isn't that incredible? It's insane. I mean, I have such mixed feelings about it. As far, like, our kids, I mean, they're familiar with sex because I've been a childbirth teacher and doula for 10 years. So, I mean, the amount of birth movies these kids have seen. And right. My kids love them. My kids, they used to, and I think they're just so sick of them at this point. They're like, really? Birth in the squatting position again? Do we, like, they know. They know it by heart. Oh, I love this lady. Watch this. But, so they're, our kids are raised with it. Yeah. And it's funny because the girls are a lot more shy talking about sex than Devin is. Devin's so comfortable about it. He's going to be 15 on Saturday. But yeah, it's quite a journey. It's a journey, but I mean, for me, it was really important. 2 things. When I left the marriage, I wanted them to see what a loving relationship was. I didn't want them
to have that as their reference point of what a marriage looks like. And number two, I wanted them to see a woman that was joyful and celebrating, because they love it when I put on pretty dresses. They're like, and I went on a date and Mayu picked out all my clothes.
Oh.
He picked out this dress. He's like, you need to wear this belt. And nope, put those shoes. Nope, I want those boots. Like the whole thing. And I want them to see a mommy that's taking care of herself. And so when they come and they find the love of their life, they're going to understand that a woman needs time to take care and nurture herself. And the boys will even say, Mommy, you're tired and kind of cranky. You should go take a nap, or maybe go take your bath, or maybe you need to go for a walk right now.
Maybe eat something.
What?
Or maybe eat something.
Yeah, and I love that, because that means that they're tuning in to my emotional health and going, Mommy needs something. And if they can have that space for women, for, the women in their lives, I think it's just such a benefit. The way to stop this emotional and sexual abuse on women is to raise boys that are evolved and aware and conscious and sensitive.
Oh, I love that. That gave me goosebumps, because it's such a different experience than in the generation that I was raised and how boys were treated. I mean, I love that your boys focus on the needs under your behavior. We live in a culture that tries to control everyone's behavior, and it's all about behavior modification and punishing and rewarding for behavior. And how beautiful that your sons aren't getting stuck on your grumpiness or however you're acting. They're completely focused on the needs under their behavior, and they learn that from you, from your modeling of focusing on their needs.
Right, and I think as women, we have we need to be doing that, and especially women that have maybe had not such a great past. Instead of how can we rise above that? Because I could be the angry divorced mom and think all men are evil and think men are horrible, because I've heard, when I became single, a lot of my girlfriends are like, oh, just don't go on any of those divorcee sites or Facebook pages, because all they do is bitch about how awful men are. And I'm like, gosh, I don't think men are awful at all. My circumstances weren't the best, but let's switch that and let's teach our boys. Let's teach our boys how to respect a woman. My oldest, about 2 years ago, we were in a homeschool co-op, and there was a little girl that was about a year or two younger than him. They had this little crush on each other, and Maya discovered that he could kiss her, so he kissed her, and it became like this. I think it was in the playhouse at a party, and he kissed her, and she was crying, and so her mom and I were talking about it, and we were talking to the kids, and I told Maya from the beginning, I said, there's nothing wrong with kissing, but if you're going to kiss a girl, you need to ask her before you do that, so that it's not something you can take. It's not a game. And so he listened, and I think it happened one more time, and they were done with that. But just to constantly teach our children, it's there's nothing wrong about any of this, but you need to ask permission. You need to know that it's okay with whoever you're with.
Completely. I think that's so important, conveying information. Now, I was reading in People magazine. I got some freebie for 3 months, and I'm so fascinated with it, because I never read it before, and there's this huge article, and I'm flipping through, I'm fascinated that other people are so fascinated with celebrities. But it was a story on the Duggars and their 2 oldest daughters, and their dating rules. And I'm so blown away, because it makes you question yourself in a way, because they're so, righteous in the sense of that they don't even kiss for the first time until they're married, and they're not even allowed to hold hands until they're engaged. And these girls seemingly, and the fiancés, so embrace this and celebrate it. Now, I don't want my kids to think that sex or sexuality is wrong or dirty when they have these urges. No. And so giving information about safe sex and sexuality in general and love is the path that I've taken. Devin's had a girlfriend for 2 years, and we have very open conversations. His girlfriend's very open with me, and the trust between us all is amazing. So, yeah, how do you feel about the way that the Duggars are handling, like how they go about it, that approach? How were you raised?
Well, I mean, I'm 46, so, and both of my parents were Catholic, but not hardcore Catholic, but pretty conservative, and especially being born. I'm Latina. I was born in Ecuador, and my mom is very much Latina. And my dad was more from a Germanic, like Minnesota farmer. Nobody talked about sex. I learned about sex through my girlfriends, about my period through my girlfriends when I was probably 12 and 13. So nothing was really discussed, and so there was a lot of shame and fear and guilt, definitely. My mom didn't own her sexuality at all because it was a bad thing. And so I had to explore and find out everything on my own. And, through my core girlfriends, and then through, different relationships with men, boys and men. So with my children, I want to be very open. I want them to understand what it's about and understand the emotions behind it and just be there. I want them to trust me to be able to have those conversations.
Do you think having a lot of rules surrounding sexuality is the way to go? Or I'm assuming not, but I'm just curious of your feelings.
I think it needs to be a conversation, and because each individual, we're so different, and the needs are going to be different. The boys are going to have they're very different boys, and I know from what I see of Rumi, he's going to be the girls just love him because he's so sensitive, and so he's more of mommy's boy. He's the one that will come and rub my back and do that type of thing. So he's going to be more of a caring, nurturing. Mayu's a little bit rougher around the edges. Also sensitive, but just so I'm going to address it differently. I'm going to address it differently, but to give them the information of what happens when we have sex and babies, how babies are born, and they've got that part. But what happens if you have a baby, and then of course like the diseases. That's the frightening thing, because STDs and all of that are they're widespread.
Yeah,
and
it's interesting. Like Family Guy has allowed us many wonderful discussions about STDs. Thank you, Family Guy, for initiating discussion. But they had an episode about herpes. Stewie got herpes, and so all my 6-year-old, everyone asked what herpes was. I tend to get a little bit more information probably than they want. I started, herpes, was first originated and was first discovered and blah, blah, blah. But they're like, Mom, we really just wanted the quick answer. We didn't need the whole Wikipedia entry about herpes. But it's so important to talk about those things, for sure. And
it is.
Yeah.
It is important because we live in a different culture where, I'm just floored when I hear about 8-year-olds having sex. It's like, really, they don't even have the emotional intelligence to understand what's happening to their bodies. So yeah, I don't know exactly what will happen when the time comes, but I'll be ready for it, and I don't want the rules. I don't, and I just want them to really learn how to respect their bodies and respect the bodies of whoever they're with.
Exactly. And I think it's so different when a child's raised in a healthy way, like our children are. And I'm proud to say that our kids are whole, healthy people. And our sexual relationships when we were younger, I can't speak for you, but I know for me, they were not really based on love. They were based on all of my friends having sex and really wanting to fit in and wanting to feel grown up and having a lot of sex for a little love, because I had no love for myself and I had to turn to others to get it. And there's so many warped issues tied into sex with most kids today. And I know from experience. So I love that, when Devin and I talk about these kind of things, it's based in love. Like to my children, sex and love are one, that they understand it that way. And it's beautiful to me. So I don't have the fears. It's funny, raising children in a naturally minded reading Mothering Magazine every single month, as you probably did every other month. We couldn't wait to get it. And I remember when Tiffany, my oldest daughter, was 2, I read Mothering Magazine about red parties, about when a girl gets her period.
Oh, yeah.
I could not wait for my daughter to get older so I could throw her a red party. Well, when I told her about it, she was mortified. She's like, no way, are you kidding me? I do not want that. It was crazy. So you never know. Some children, they could be raised the same way, just like your boys. They're both raised by you, but the way that they respond to openness is different.
It's different, and so we don't know until we're in that position, and then we just pull the cards, like I just trust it will happen the way it's supposed to, and the information and the knowledge will be shared so that they just want them to be empowered. I mean, it's so natural for, when we're in our teenage years to have this, like, ripe sexuality. Like, it's so exciting. And the first time a boy kisses you and then, what was it, base 1, base 2, whatever that was, it was just, it's exciting. And there needs to be a space created for that allows that without the shame, but also gives the guidance so it doesn't go into a whole different arena.
Completely.
Where it's not based out of love or respect. And I think if you teach, like even with the Radical Self-Love program, I'm like, gosh, I need to figure out how to do this. I would love to do this for kids and start them young. If I would have had this young, then I wouldn't have made the choices, some of the choices I made in my 20s.
Right. It would be great to have like a mother-daughter sacred radical love kind of program. I think your program looks amazing. I encourage people. Would you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, it's a 4-week online program, so you get the worksheet delivered every Tuesday to your email. And after the second week, I get on a coaching call with you and just walk through it. So basically, the first 2 weeks are the most intense. It's where you're figuring out at what point in your life did you go from being loved, whole, and complete to being felt shamed or unworthy. It could be a circumstance, it could be somebody that told you something, or it could be an abusive situation. And then I teach them how to release that, like truly and powerfully release that. And then the following 2 weeks are about just really like empowering yourself, getting into your body, celebrating. And it's a lot of fun. And then we have a private Facebook page so women can connect with each other. They can ask me questions. But the way the program is designed is really to make this breakthrough, because I want it to be a big aha. Oh my gosh, that's why I made all the choices that I did. Because of that incident, and then just to kind of destroy that story so it's not holding you victim or hostage to your life. And so that's the beginning, and then I want to go into, probably in the fall, like a Super Sensual program. But I have a couple men that want to do the program with me, and I also have a married couple that wants to do the program together. So I'm excited to see how it can really filter whether you're single or married or kids or no kids or male or female, how the work can really lend itself to something better in your life.
Well, it's always an inside job, isn't it? Everything comes from within us. Everything's connected to our self-love and how we feel about ourselves. Our outer experience is such a mirror of that. I know when I'm feeling good and confident, oh my goodness, so many amazing things come to me. I feel like my dreams come true left and right. I've been in one of those spaces in the last couple of days. It feels so good. Everything I've wanted lately, this conference in England just flew together so effortlessly. Everything's just opening up. But if I go through a period of time where I'm feeling a little less self-confident or it's harder, it's amazing how then that's reflected in your outer world.
Right. And what happens when we just, you can look at your life as a series of lessons, or you can look at it as a tragedy. And if everything's tragic, if everything is painful, you are actually vibrating at that frequency. And so what you're going to be bringing into your life is more of that. And so what I'm teaching people is like when we shift that, when we say, you know what, those are great lessons. Let's clear this energy and make space so that I can love myself. And it's, for me, the self-love isn't just about, okay, let's put on a pretty lipstick and a dress and go have tea. It's deeper work. I'm getting to the root cause of it. The other stuff is the self-care, which is great. And I think start anywhere, you know, even if, especially for moms, because we know, like, it's exhausting after you have your first baby, your second baby, your third baby. And I think that is such an nourished part of motherhood, because, and I saw it through the stores, is women were not they're not taking care of themselves, and to the point where, you know, they'd come into the store and it's 3:00 and I'd ask them, what did you eat for lunch? And they're like, goldfish crackers and the crumbs of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I'm like, that's not food. You're nursing your baby.
Right.
So having that kind of conversation with new moms before they even get pregnant, it's like, you need to take care of yourself. You need to figure out some type of strategy to make sure that you're not depleted.
Well, don't you think it's so common for women who are coming from the perspective of attachment parenting? You know, you're aware that what you don't want to do. You're aware that you don't want to come from the conventional approach of letting a baby cry it out. The conventional approach is really narcissistic because it's focused on the parent's needs solely, the parent's needs for quiet, uninterrupted sleep, scheduling this baby around your life. So attachment parent moms come to this life so open-hearted, like, I am at service. I am here to meet my child's needs. And the pendulum swings way over on the other side, and they don't realize that their needs are just as important, and it's a really important responsibility to take care of their own needs just as much as their child. So a lot of times I found through being a La Leche League leader that women would almost want to give up on attachment parenting, but they weren't really quite doing it. They were meeting the child's needs, but not their own. But they were so depleted because they never found that pendulum to balance in the middle, a beautiful middle place where everyone's needs matter equally. So it's really important to understand that when you're parenting this path.
Yeah, it's very huge. And I got to the point in the store because in retrospect, before my body completely crashed, looking at my lifestyle, it's like, yeah, you know what? I maybe could have eased up on the breastfeeding just a little bit. I didn't have to fully go the 4 years. I did take timeouts from cloth diapering, and I remember my husband going, what's up with these, 7th generation diapers? I'm like, you know what? It's time out for me for 2 weeks. I'm done. I pick and choose your battles. And so, and then the same thing with the sleep, because Rumi was nursing like a newborn until he was 3. And I woke up I remember telling my husband, I'm like, I'm done. He can't nurse at night anymore. I'm exhausted. And just not feeling like I had to do all of it 100%, because a depleted mom, a sick mom, is not a good mom. And at the end of the day, my kids are healthy and they're loved and they're emotionally balanced. If I tweaked it just a little bit, would they have been much different? Know what your very top of the tier priorities are and stick to those, and then maybe some of the other ones, just be flexible.
Right, you can only do what you can do, and there's so much naturally minded shaming out there. I found that so judgmental. It was hard, and I honestly fell into it too when I was so passionate about it with babies. I was so judgmental. I would see a baby with a bottle, and my heart would weep, and I'd just be so upset that baby wasn't breastfed. I never knew that woman's story. The same with birth. No. That was a childbirth teacher. To me, natural birth was the ultimate goal over anything else. Well, sometimes women aren't able to do that. I mean, you know this story. So a lot of us who were on this judgmental path were so well-intentioned because we were so passionate about something that we never knew anything about, and it blew our minds and it changed our lives, and we became women to the fullest sense on so many levels after giving birth and parenting this way. So I think you're so right, because I'd rather be a happy mom with my needs met and put my child in disposable diapers at night, for example, which was my thing. At nighttime, I couldn't cloth diaper anymore because the bed was getting wet and co-slept. So I would cloth diaper during the day, and I was almost ashamed to say, oh, we do disposables at night because they hold a lot more pee, you know?
I know. And I see by having the store, because I had a lot of different products, I would have several different types of moms come to the store. So within the first year, I realized, not everybody's a natural childbirther that comes into my store. And I remember one time a girlfriend of mine was there, and this woman had had a C-section, and I was listening to the woman's story, and of course inside I'm going, C-section, oh my gosh, that whole thing. And but I had to tune into what her story was, and how could I judge and shame somebody that's coming into my store to buy something just because of the circumstance of her birth? And my girlfriend said, wow, you were so nice to her. I could not have held my tongue. And I thought, nope, this is not going to be what I'm about, because I don't want people to be afraid to come to me, because who knows if that one mom that chose a C-section comes into my store and I shut her down so the conversation doesn't even lead into, well, I had a home birth and this is my story, and inspire that woman so that maybe her second birth she would choose a little differently, or she would take a natural childbirth class. So everything I think it's our responsibility to take how we raise our children and our families naturally and holistically, and instead of shoving it down or shaming people for not doing exactly the way you do it, maybe they go home and go, oh, you know what, Christy said that maybe I'll try this type of toothpaste instead of the Crest. And it's like one change, one small thing. And then pretty soon they're coming back and going, okay, so what was the name of that class, or what was the skincare product that you were talking about? It can be a gentle roll in instead of shutting them down so it doesn't even go further than that.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, it happened, I would see in that community, the attachment parenting community, and it would be almost kind of cliquish, so that if other women came into the store that didn't follow those same guidelines, it's like they weren't invited.
Exactly. And I find that in the unschooling community too. It's blew my mind. I thought we were all like part of the same beautiful peace and love community. And then you realize that there's a lot of meanness. There's bullying. There's cruelty. It's everywhere. I think it's just human nature, and it's judgmental, and nobody knows how somebody else has walked, their path. No one else has walked in everybody's shoes. I think to truly live a life of compassion and peace is to open your heart to understanding and be unconditional to everybody you meet, because it's through love and non-judgment that we change the world. And
that's the simple exercise of just sitting and listening, just creating space and listening to their story without reacting, and really kind of putting yourself into their position and going, oh, okay, I can understand that. I may not choose that, but I can understand it.
Definitely. And Christy, I'm going to England this year, and I was remembering my last trip to England, and on the flight home, I did write about this at one point, but on the way home, there was a mother in front of me, and she had two young children in the seat, and her children were crying and whiny, and the mother seemed really kind of bitchy. She pinched her daughter's leg, and she was kind of snappy and yelling, and I turned to Joe, and I'm like, oh my God, look at this. This is like awful. I was totally in judgment mode initially. I couldn't believe how mean she was being to her children, and something happened, and I said, I'm just going to open my heart to this woman. And in a few minutes, I looked up in the front seat, and I leaned in, and I said, can I help you with anything? And she looked into my eyes, and she started crying. She started bawling, and she said, I've been traveling for 12 hours from Africa, and I haven't seen my husband in 3 months, and I haven't slept in about 48 hours total from all of our travels. She had been flying for 11 hours. That's what it was. And she just sobbed, and she said, please help me. And I got her a cup of tea and took her 2-year-old and walked her up and down the aisle. And my daughter Tiffany ended up sitting with her other daughter playing with their eye devices. And the mother just slept for like 5 hours straight. And I started it changed me forever, because here I was totally judging what I thought was like an authoritarian, mean parent, when in fact this mother was so empty. She just needed love. When you see somebody in the grocery store and their child's crying and they're being mean or snappy, or a father is yelling, do not automatically get angry too. It's such a normal response for those of us for children's rights and freedom and peace to look and scoff like, oh, I can't believe it. Instead, open your heart, focus on the needs under these parents' behavior too, and connect with them. And I love that message of connection. So I think through your work, through the radical self-love and all the inner healing, people are going to be able to get closer to that kind of understanding of others.
Right, because we can't be loving to other people if we're not loving to ourselves.
Exactly. Again, it's that mirror.
Most of us are not. I mean, I've written Facebook posts, and anyone feel free to friend me on Facebook, because that's been pretty much my forum until we get our website completely up and running. But I talk about the signs of when you're not really in self-love. People will say, oh, yeah, I love myself. And it's like, wait, did you just say yes when you meant to say no?
Right.
Did you just forget to put your needs ahead of obligations? Did you just allow somebody to speak to you in a way that just makes your insides curdle? Like, let's talk about what it really means to love yourself.
Isn't it? It's layers too, isn't it, Christy? It's like it's like a spiral in layers and layers. I've noticed that it's all a process that you go through. There's always more self-love to be had. There's more layers to be shed.
Right, and I'm so glad you said that, because when you do personal growth work, when you take on this path of becoming evolved and aware and conscious of yourself in this world, in this planet, it's not a one-shot deal. Yeah, you can take my 4-week program and it's really going to propel you and push you into a whole new world of loving yourself and having this amazing relationship with yourself. But that's not it. You're going to be able to take that program and use it for the rest of your life, because circumstances, life brings you new challenges and new stories to be told and understand. And it's what happens when you do this work. Like you said, it's the layers, but then it's not as catastrophic. So you go from this challenge that seems like it's the end of the world, you do the work, and then you realize, oh wait, the transition becomes more graceful, because you have that inner knowing, you trust the process, and the universe, God, has your highest needs always in favor if you trust it. So yeah, it is a process. It's ongoing, and it's fun. It's so
well, that's
fun.
a great thing about it. So if anybody wants to improve themselves and learn how to love themselves, this, as a side effect of doing so, you will become closer to the parent that you want to be. You'll move more toward a peaceful partnership with your children. You will be open to so many things. It all starts within. So I highly encourage contacting Christy for this amazing online event. I was invited and I can't wait to do it. So I'll be part of the group. I can't wait for that. So thank you so much for the invitation for that.
Yeah, and it starts May 6th. That's the next session. I only accept a small group of people because I like it to be intimate. I have a Facebook, I created a Facebook event page that's Radical Self-Love, a crash course in loving yourself for May. And then my website is christyfunk.net. It's going to be changing to .com, but right now you can go on to christyfunk.net, and it's CHRISTY and then FUNK.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Christy, for coming on the show tonight. I really appreciate it. I hope we can have you on again.
Thank you. Absolutely. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.